Welcome to EasyClear, your one-stop software solution. Our goal is to uniform the supply chain along all modalities into one platform. This is inclusive of Transnet, customs services, and IATA, along with cross-border and transit into upper African countries. We offer system as a service that allow easy-to-use transitions between the forwarding, RCG, clearance, invoicing with disbursements, reporting, and bulk interactions. Follow me into the agent industry with your host, Devin Few.
And for any questions, you can preempt them and put them in the chat, but I will leave you a moment after the session just to go over any questions you'd like to portray or introduce as well. Alrighty, so for EasyClear Web, for those of you who are only joining the session today, EasyClear may not have seen this EasyClear screen as yet, but for those of you who are new to it, we now have a EasyClear Web scenario so that you'll be able to access EasyClear from anywhere you are in the world as long as you have internet. Alrighty, let's get started by logging into the test environment. You'll notice the EasyClear website is called easyclearx.co.za, and if you were to Google that, you might find that to be the first result on Google as well. The first login screen, we will provide a login detail for you, and this is the username and password that we do not give out, but we can get your browser to remember the username and password if an EasyClear representative logs onto your computer and inserts this information. The second portion to this, if I get the password right, the second portion to this will be your personal details to log in. So you'd select your company name, your departments. You can have more than one department for further control of the system, such as imports, exports, estimates, if you want to have a whole estimates module as well. It's good to keep those departments separate, but please liaise that with your EasyClear personnel to make certain that your company is set up correctly in regards to how you'd like to use the program. All right, so I'm just going to log into my name over here. Fantastic. All right, as again, this is the landing page, the first page you would see within the EasyClear application as to how many shipments you have done between a specific date range. And then you can, from a managerial point of view, just review how many imports, exports, voucher corrections, forwarding, manifests, inclusive of estimates you've done for that specific time period. And you're more than welcome to change that date period to a lesser date, refresh it in order to review how many queries or declarations you've done for that day or that specific date range. All right. Bypassing everything else, I'm just going to go shortly and briefly over the menu items on the left-hand side, just very, very briefly. The first one being the contact us. So if you don't have our contact information, just remember to take this down. Our after-hour number between 5 o'clock in the afternoon up until 8:30 in the morning. And then that phone gets switched off during office hours. And all other contact information below. But most commonly, please do include support@easyclear.co.za for any and further inquiries. All right. So that's more to that. We do have the advanced search scenario that allows you to search anywhere between a master file house number right up to RCG inclusive. Next is the estimates module, if you're raising estimates as per the first training session. The master file that we'll be discussing today. Forwarding module, if you're doing an agent-to-agent delivery. Your clearing is in concern to your imports, exports, inclusive of voucher corrections. We also have a quick frame item, which we'll elaborate on in the third session, as well as other SARS documentation and landed costing for sea freight as well. We also have the full RCG module for any type of reporting, whether you own an aeroplane or own the boat, right down to a depot report, all the way down to a agent reporting under cargo reporting, or for road freight specifically manifests. NPA, we do link directly to the Transnet system for cargo dues. Landing order, shipping order, and others below are specifically printout documents. We are still waiting for Transnet to give us their development to liaise with that as well, but you can raise one and load it into the system for EasyClear. Waybills for your international or domestic waybill. SARS, the most important documentation on SARS would be the tariff book, or furthermore to that would be the report, specifically deferment or VAT 404. EDR section, send bulk EDR. As long as the SCD 500 is correct, you can create multiple bulk EDR messages or just review the EDR dashboard to see what's going on with the EDR messages. Accounts for those of you who incorporate the financial portion of your business into EasyClear. And yes, we do integrate with multiple levels of financial applications out there, such as Pastel and Sage. Maintenance, the most common portion of maintenance that you'd be utilizing would specifically be the client master. But under client master, you can actually review that while you're registering a file, be it a master file or a clearance file. Management for QC management, if you want to quality check any declaration to prove it before it's allowed to be sent to customs or finalized. Acquittals, we have the full acquittal system for outstanding acquittals. The tracking module, if you want to do your daily tracking, or further more to that, review incomplete entries or uninvoiced entries as well. The warehousing module, be it bonded goods for SOS or OS, or free store inclusive, as well as reports. The transport module, allowing you to do a cargo draw sheet or cargo load sheet, be it air, road, rail, or sea, most commonly built for road freight. The reporting section, any reports you would like us to add into the system, we can do so within the same day, be it Easy Report for PDF downloads. If it's going to be an Excel report, you're more than welcome to review any reports loaded in your system. And if you find the report you're looking for in Excel is not available, just reach out to support@easyclear.co.za and just verify an example of the report you're looking for so we can load it into system specific to your requirements and needs. And then last but not least, integration for those of you who would like to autonomously communicate one electronic system into EasyClear, just reach out to us and we can take you through that, as it's quite involved and would require a developer on your side for the electronic data that is absolutely correct. And then you can lessen the data capturing by utilizing an integration method like that. All right, so those are the available options within EasyClear. Shall we get started with the master file? All right. Let's see, there was a quick notification. I just want to review the chat before we run into it any further, make sure I'm not missing anybody. All right, so see, Percy is having a little bit of problems hearing me. My audio is set to loud. Right, then that first section, I just went over all the scenarios. Sorry, I believe my microphone was inactive there, so possibly talking to myself there. But it's all good. I will review that in the recording session and make it available. Just went over the first section here. So as per the very first session that I had, which will be available in the recording, and hopefully by Friday, we can upload it to YouTube, or by Monday, and we'll send out the links to that YouTube as well. So welcome everybody. We're going to go through the master file. Apologies for the audio at the beginning. Right. For master file, the first question is, what is a master file? A master file is more or less a placeholder where you know you've got potential business, but you're not raising an estimate or quotes at the time. However, you would like to take note of the consolidated shipment, the straight shipment, or the forwarding shipment that is not yet approved by the client or the end user from your perspective, and you would like to just jot down the information in order to feed it into the clearance or the forwarding section as well. Excuse me. So I'm just going to press the search button and just define what's on screen here. The home button will obviously take you back to the home screen. Then I can come back into master file. Add button will add a brand new file there. I can use the magnifying glass on top and actually zoom in just a little bit further so everybody can actually see what's going on there. If you'd like to, you can also use the control button on your keyboard and use your middle mouse cursor to zoom in or out as you please. I tend to just stick to 100% view, but for those of you, I've done 150 just to make it easier to see. The search option within master file allows you number of records to fetch. Number of records to fetch, if you want to specify 10 all the way through to 1,000, and just press the search button immediately, you're searching for the first 1,000 files by date order in descending order. So your latest one will always come up first. So if I press the search button straight away, I can see my latest file that was registered will always come up first. And for further reference, you can search by the reference number. What is the master file reference number? To which we also have auto numbering for master filing as well. So when I press the search button, you can see the first 1,000 records have come up rather quickly. And when you are pressing the search button or doing anything within EasyClear, especially saving an object, just double check that the browser isn't still spinning in regards to refreshing, as you'd want to wait for that refreshing to complete before you continue to the next item. It's always advisable. All right, so I'm going to go through a add file scenario to add a new file into the system. I have not added auto numbering to the master file scenario as yet for the test environment, but as I say, that setup is quite available and easy within the system. Can be done by yourself, but we do prefer you reach out to us as administrative users can do it themselves. But as I say, we are used to the system, so we can maybe potentially help you accommodate the auto file numbering that you are looking for. All right, so if you don't have auto file numbering and we're adding a brand new master file, we can specify what the file number is going to be. So I'm always going to start at the top and work my way down. All right, so I'm going to go and insert master file 001, for instance, and you could utilize that per modality. So if you want to have auto numbering for air, road, rail, and sea, that follows the number suite but defines whether it was an air freight or sea freight file, making the file number easier to read and define what modality it actually comes from. Maybe your file number sequential file number order can help with that. The next will be the type. So I'm going to press the tab button to go forward. Enter button right now doesn't do very much on the web application. So please, in future on web, please use the tab button to move forward. When you see there's a drop-down list, you're more than welcome to use your mouse. I like to use my arrow keys as well. And then I can see, am I doing an import or export type entry? At the moment, I'm going to specify this one as an import. What is the modality? Is it air, road, rail, or sea? I'm going to utilize this one as air freight. Then the duty type selection, CCA, obviously that is for BLNS, apologies, BELN, Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, and Namibia, as per the South African trade agreement with those neighboring countries only. For any other country, be it Zimbabwe or Maputo, Mozambique, further to that, you'd need to specify the actual duty type depending on your entry. So if this is a straight up entry from, let's call it from the United States through to South Africa via air freight, I'm going to select my potential DP, but obviously this is not valid for the declaration, as that can always change when you're doing your customs clearance as per the clearing instruction. Will there be an onward transfer mode? Well, I'm not potentially utilizing an RIT or an RIB or even a Z-type entry there. So at the moment, there wouldn't be an onward transfer mode. But if it had to come into the country and you know it's going straight out the country thereafter, you can specify is it coming in via air freight and leaving via sea freight, or is it leaving via air freight as well? So that would be the onward transfer mode. how it came into the country in the first transfer mode, as to how is it leaving the country thereafter. But as per this example here, I'm doing a straight import from the US into South Africa, so there's no need for an onward transfer mode. The client reference number, excuse me, the client reference number, the client potentially would provide you with their own reference number. However, you can type in your own reference number or leave it blank. At this point, it is not mandatory. And now that I've selected the very few first fields here, in between that, I might receive a phone call from a client. So at this point now, I can actually press the save button. And if there's no errors that come up on the far left-hand side, we know that the file is saved. I do see that auto numbering actually has been set up by one of my colleagues. I did not preview that prior to the meeting. So we can see now that the master file MST22090011 has automatically assigned itself. All right, so that auto numbering was set up for the operations department, but I believe if I was in another department, that would not have pulled through. All right, so if I go back to the search option now, and immediately press the search, I should be able to see that my file number will be there. But I see that this one here is based on capture order from earliest file number right down to the latest file number in that order. So if you'd like that order change for the latest to be on top, just let us know, as I'm certain we can make that available. I'm going to reopen the file that I've just saved. That was just to show you the test that I can put in very minimum data in order to save the file, just in case you're interrupted for whatever given reason. All right, then we have the invoice number. So if you potentially have a client supplier's invoice number, you can raise that here at this point, or you can put in your own invoice number. It's not a mandatory field, but it is available if you wanted to capture as much master file detail as possible, so that when you're raising any clearance file, you can see, that's the information that we had in comparison to what we have now. So most of the information can pull through over to clearance. When I'm doing the clearance file reviews, we can utilize this file over here just to show you how that will pull over into the clearance file, be it imports or exports. So for the supplier's invoice number, I'm just going to call this supplier INV 001. Will there be a purchase order number and a SO number from the client? If there is, you're more than welcome to insert it. So PO 001 and a SO 001. The customer, if the customer doesn't exist in your system, you're more than welcome to add it at this point. It is highly recommended that you rather add your client first, because if you go about and choose a client that's within the system, I'm just going to choose this first tracking client over here, and then press the save button. Then just to show you the little hiccup, what this actually does is if you choose the tracking client first and then you say, oh, I actually meant to create a brand new client, this client is based on the record already. So if I have to say new client is Devon EZC, for instance, I want to double check, does Devon EZC 1, 2 already exist in the system? So I'm going to leave out the 2 and press the tab button. The 2 did not automatically populate here. So now's the opportunity where I can insert the 2 or immediately press the plus button and then start typing in the 2 there. I see the hiccup doesn't actually occur on this screen, more the clearance file, whereas if you've chosen a client name already, you go back and come into the file, you might see a different address there, even though you're adding a new client. So the preference is add a new client first if you know that's going to be the choice, without selecting a random client and then trying to readjust it to be a new client in that order, please. All right, now put in the test address. So we don't validate address lines, and we won't validate the customs code at this point, as you potentially might not have that information. All right, so I can see this marked off purely as the client, be it the billing client. So if I know it's a billing client, I can also mark it as a debtor, and then try press the save button. But you'll see if I've marked it off as a debtor, debtor account number is mandatory. But this is the process you can use to add clients whilst you are busy registering the file. All right, the importer exporter, based on that one, I'll say the importer is Devon EZC, and that should return the Easy Clear. So I didn't need to type in the full name because that name already exists in the system. If, say, for instance, I just had to type in the word Devon, I see that there's multiple results, hence why the pop-up comes through. But if in an alphabetical order, I see that Devon EZC is the only one with that name. So the moment I type in the EZC, it will automatically populate the LEAR for me because it's only returning one result. For the second item, if I had to type in my name and surname, I would still get a pop-up of these 3 items down below because they all correspond to the name that you've typed in. So if you do find that you have multitudes of the same name or similar thereof, if I had to type in that highlighted information there, I would only return one result, so the system would automatically populate that for me. All right, so I'm just going to review that again. So Devon E can go into the search for the client master and return the EZ clear accordingly. If you notice while you are searching for a client and the program keeps spinning, please try and just double check with your IT departments if there's any delays with your internet, as the program can only work as fast as your internet is available at that time. All right, then we have the supplier consignee. If I put in the word S, I can see what supplier consignee names are available in the system, or I can use this opportunity to add one. So because supplier consignee is just name and surname, let's just go back over to importer, exporter, and add a new importer. And I'll call that Devon EasyClear 001, for instance, and press the tab and then the plus button because I know it doesn't exist in the system. That's in order to refresh the rec ID in the backend to make certain that the previous name I chose is unlinked from this box. For the new name that I'm adding is now an importer. I had pressed the plus button for this pop-up to come through. I can see that the importer dropdown is already assigned. And at the same time, I know this client's going to be a debtor as well. So I'm just going to tick the box debtor. Please duly note, as per the dropdown, you can only make it an importer, bondholder, consignee supplier. You can't have an importer and exporter be a consignee supplier at the same time, as generally you'd receive a rejection by customs if your supplier has a customs code when you're not following the relationship method for valuation codes. All right, so that's why we leave supplier as not as a tick box down below, so you can't accidentally choose it as the same type. Then you see a scroll bar on the far right hand side. You can scroll down a bit, can see the names already there. At this point, I can still edit the name, add an additional dot, save it, or whatever the further name is for trading as Devon, CC, P2 Ltd, whatever the case may be. The moment that you complete the client name, the address, customs code, and debtor account number in this case, and press the save button, and you want to come back and edit the name thereafter, EasyClear locks the name down. So if you accidentally captured an incorrect name, please note you will most likely have to delete it and re-add it again thereafter. You cannot edit a name after it's been added to the system, but if you know that that client name has already been used for a full customs declaration sent to customs, preferably don't delete that item so that we can make certain that each type of customized reports in the EasyClear system will print that client name specifically. Oh, sorry, just double checking the chat there. Right, so I'm just going to complete the address here. So 23 Holland Road, and we'll just say Jamestown, South Africa, 1401. Cool. That information is fake, so please take note of that. It's not valid. You will get your information from your clients or your documentation. Right there, you can also add suburbs. So if you're doing localized tracking, and you want to pull through the suburb to say this is potentially the domestic delivery from the airport when it came in through to the suburb, you can have that and then just liaise as to what kind of reports you want that to pull through if you want to insert that information. But if you'd like to bypass it, you're more than welcome to. The customs code, I'm just going to make up a 8-digit customs code. Because if you had to use an unregistered trader, then you would need to utilize the ID number, tax number, or foreign passport number and insert the passport number below. So I'm just going to provide an example here. So a fake ID number over here, or tax ID or foreign passport number. If I had a valid customs code, I would not require that information, but EasyClear's system is intelligent in that manner that if it sees that it is a valid customs code, but you accidentally left the ID passport number below, we would ignore that bottom section regardless. All right, for this exercise, I'm going to remove the ID number and put in a temporary customs code. Yeah. And then the debtor account number would be mandatory purely because I ticked the box for debtor. If I had to untick it, I wouldn't need to insert that information. All right, so we'll call this account number 001 and then save. Right, so you can see that name is there. To confirm an item is saved, if you just want to double check yourself, remove the last two characters thereof, press the tab option, and you can see the system automatically returns the only results it can find in the system. All right, same thing for supplier. Supplier tests Devon. I know this name doesn't exist in the system, but just in case, remove the last character, press tab. It didn't auto-populate that for me, so I'll press the plus button here, fill in the name. Duly notes I'm not editing anything further on top. I press the plus button next to a supplier, so my consignee supplier is automatically ticked because that's the field it's related to. If I scroll down, I can insert the test address. And then for you, those of you who have further questions on this, if I don't press the save button now, but I do press the blue button for show more, it will take this information and open up a secondary tab on top. So I'll press the show more button, and then you'll see it takes us straight into client maintenance. There is no home button over here because we're trying to force the users to please rather close this as you're working on the first tab here based on your file number that you're capturing as per the link on top. So I can see there's supplier test Devon. If I have to go back over here and just see at this point, because I pressed the blue button, the client name is already saved in the system. So just remember, if you pressing that blue button, complete your name before you press the blue button, especially when adding a new client or supplier into the system, as this is already now saved into the system. If I had to try and amend the name as right now, you'll see I cannot change the name. It is already saved. It will always revert to the name you put in first. Alrighty. Then from there, I can just go through any of the defaults on the left-hand side, further defaults, specifically supplier defaults. And for those of you who do get a valuation code error on the SAD 500 on clearance, that's because most likely this field here is not populated. All right, I'm just going to close the suppliers field as I know that's already saved. I'm done with my supplier. And then furthermore to that is this going through to a warehouse. If there is a warehouse involved, you can add it, but according to my duty type for a DP, could be a DP WH split, but we don't know during the capture of the master file. Is there a remover party, a rebate user for your GR type entries? Will there be an acquitting agent, most commonly for your on-road transfer mode scenarios, transit entries or entries that came into the country and have left? Who is going to be the localized transporter? So you can always add or insert your transporter, and the transporter itself may itself have a customs code linked to it. Or if you don't know the transporter's carrier code or customs code, you can at this point leave it blank, but it's always good to populate that later. All right, who is the overseas agent? So if your client's contacting you, you wouldn't know who the overseas agent might be at this point. They might still be arranging that. Or if the agent phoned you at this point, you can insert that information accordingly. So we'll just specify any overseas agents. So Harry, overseas agent. And I can see, again, if I need to identify, is the name already exist in the system? I remove the last character. I can see it's not by pressing tab. So I'll press the plus button. I can see it's overseas agents. Finalize the name and insert the overseas agent's address. If you would like to at this point, you can also insert their overseas agent customs code as well, if you do know what their customs code is. I may have misconstrued that. Overseas agent would now have a South African registered customs code. Apologies there. All right, so there's my overseas agents. If you're doing a road freight entry, you can also specify what is the number of trucks. So say, for instance, a consolidation load where one house number is going across 3 different trucks. You can specify at this point that there's going to be 3 different trucks by pressing the plus button, insert in your truck detail 1, what is the weight, and then the plus button thereafter to insert truck detail 2, what is the weight. We are doing an air freight shipment, so I don't need to insert the truck details. Maybe the air freight shipments will give me the flight detail. So if you'd like to utilize that one, you can specify what is the flight detail going to be here for transport details, but it's most commonly used for road freight as we have a secondary option for the transport detail 1, 2, and 3 below. Right, I'm just going to close that, but to explain the buttons on top before I do, the plus will be the add button. The green button is your save. The red button is to delete what you have saved. So if I save it now, I can see what I've added and then press the delete button to delete it. The orange button to close the screen. If you would like to, you can also just ask us what is the format for this if you're doing tracking, as to what is the CSV file that you can upload to upload multiple trucks in one given take. All right, so I'm just going to delete that. Oh, and then you can see it is gone. All right, so I'm just going to bypass the number of trucks for this air freight master file. Then transport detail 1. Transport detail 1, is it an Emirates flight or an SAA flight or whatever the case may be? You should potentially have the flight number, but not the master airwaybill number at this point, as it has not been booked. Or if it's a sea freight type entry, you wouldn't have the master bill lading number at this point. So for transport detail 1, that would be your vessel name. And then for transport detail 3 would be your voyage number. So for sea freight, you skip transport detail 2. For road freight, it would be truck and trailer details. And then for air freight would just be your flight details. At this point, I know that Emirates is 176- and whatever the following master airwaybill number is that you potentially booked in sequence. But if you do not have that information at hand, it's not a mandatory field. You can leave it blank at this point. I'm just putting 176 as a placeholder. Would there potentially be a house number? So if there is a house number in question and the client's already said they want to use a specific house number in question there, you can more than likely insert it. When you're doing your clearance level, you can change it at that point for customs purposes. The master file is more for internal purposes, only as a dummy register, if you can put it that way. So I'm just going to call this house 001. Then we can specify more or less where is the goods coming from. So I'm going to use John F. Kennedy. Now, if I put in John F., it's going to return John F. Kennedy International Airport. But if I only insert JOH, I'm going to get Johannesburg, John F. Kennedy, Johnson, everything that has JOH in its city name, specifically this portion here, as EasyClear searches for place of issue or port of discharge as the city name. If you only insert the ISO code into that field, please take note that will not, you can do that in master file, but please avoid doing that in the clearance level, as though if the ISO code doesn't auto-populate, please phone us. All right, so at this point here, I'm going to utilize the John F. Kennedy Airport, but then I inserted JOHN. I still get a return result of everything that's got JOHN in its literature. So John space would be enough, but I've put in John F, so it only returns one result. So as you get used to the cities within the EasyClear system, it might be easier to take you through it that way. Or at any point, you can print your cities from the EasyClear system to see what is available and what is the following UN low code or ISO code. Right. Shipped on board date. If the client specifies that this is going to be a shipped on board date for potentially the 18th of this month, they'll confirm on the 17th that everything's in order. You can use the SOB date as a potential date as per the master file sequencing. If I'm too lazy and I don't want to write in 2022, 09, 18, for instance, I can use the calendar button on the far right hand side and just select the date that I want to specify. Whoops, didn't mean to select the 19. Let's go back to the 18th. What is the ETA date of arrival? Potentially the same day arrival or the next day thereafter. Where you're collecting the cargo from, you'll note that this is a very free format field, so you can manually type in what you like over there. My potential here, I'm going to be collecting it from Johannesburg International Airport. Who is the shipper? So you got your overseas agent on top, but your actual shipper. So if you utilize the magnifying glass over here, you can see what is the client names that have been added into the system. And there's no plus button over here. So if you note that the shipper doesn't already exist in the system and you want to add a shipper to the system, I do like to go to another one of the fields on top, press the plus button there, or go into the client maintenance from the maintenance screen as well. And then I can just mark it off as the forwarder transporter accordingly. I'll just mark this off as test shipper. Pressing the save button in order to go into the shipper item. So there are ways to get around that. All right. So I just want to mark that off. And there's the test shipper accordingly. I see that this is test shipper -IMP and not the one that I actually added for test shipper on top. Right, so I'm going to remove that on top. What is the loading port? Sorry, when I tab through there, I see that that came from remover. What is the loading port? So the loading ports would be the same as it coming from the loading port overseas. The country of origin, I just had to insert US. I can just specify that one accordingly. This is a weird country of origin pop-up here. I think this needs a bit of a decisive check with our development department because I'm pretty certain. Oh, it keeps going back to the remover. Let me just insert a remover so it doesn't actually come up that way. And it's actually rather interesting. The country origin looks like it's a free format field there, so it should be perfectly fine, even though that there's a lookup. If I insert the lookup, I can see that the US for United States does come up now. So if you're back in the remover field and come to an additional field, I can see that there's a little bit of a glitch between the two. That's why we do these type of sessions to make certain our system runs perfectly. So I'll take notes of that in order to get that rectified. Right, then the discharge ports, we're going to say that this is Johannesburg International Airport. How do I know I am selecting Johannesburg International Airport? Well, the ISO code that I'm looking for there would be JSA. So if I know that I'm looking for JSA specifically, and I just wanted to insert J, I inserted J and I see there's multiple results. I can use Control F on my keyboard, and for any browser that will return the quick search results, whether I'm on internet banking, Wikipedia, or EasyClear, I can press Control F for a quick search result there. The ISO code that I'd be looking for there would be JSA. I see it's just returning the first 100 results. So I need to refine my search just a little bit. I'm just going to try JH, for instance. I can see there's only one JHB International. If, say, for instance, I just wanted to make certain that that ISO code was correct, I can go into Home, and in a later session, I'll go through this properly, but I can go into Maintenance and the country lookup scenario. Under country lookup, I can search by ISO code or country code or the city name. So for JHB International Airport, if I were to search for that one accordingly, I can see it's going to return a UN low code of ZA, JSA. For IATA and customs, JSA being the main perspective. All right, so we'll just go back to our master file, hit the search button immediately, and it should be the last one in the row. Oh, so I'm back in my file without actually even needing to type in anything. What is the country of destination? Now, this should just be ZA, but if you want to insert South Africa and press tab, you'll see it results to ZA as well. Same thing for the clearance file. So I choose the lazy way around and just insert ZA. All right, description of goods, a short description of the goods. So test books on a plane, similar to snakes on a plane. Thank goodness it's books. Then we get the JSA customs office. So you will take notes. It's good to know your customs officers. If you don't know the customs office, please do just double check the SARS website as they have the full list of customs officers there. And we have the search option to show you all customs officers here as well. I can see that this one's marked off as JSA for OR Tambo. I can run with that selection and we'll still put in JSA. So that's where I just like to say, I know my customs office, so I'm just going to insert the JSA field over there. This is the only place where you insert the ISO code because it is unique to that customs office. All right, the driver name, well, I don't know who the pilot is in this case, so I would actually bypass that. But if it was a row freight entry, I could potentially put in the driver name over there. And then what is this consignment type? Is it a straight or a consolidated shipment? So in other words, more than one house bolt on one shipment, or straight shipments, obviously bypassing the need for RCG, be it air freight or sea freight type scenarios. If it was a consolidated type shipment, I'd be expecting to have more than one house line attached to this master file. Once I'm done with this portion over here and I press the tab button, excuse me, you'll see that the tab button takes me through to the save option. Excuse me. Once I press save, I can see all my information is saved. If there were any issues with this, I'd see an issue or an error message pop up underneath the schedule. Not clicking the schedule, just to pop up under the schedule, just in case there's any errors. And you can always click on that and bypass. But because master file is so versatile, there shouldn't be any errors because you can insert whatever information you like on a master file, as is most commonly internal referencing, but can pull through to your clearance file as well. So I'm just going to elaborate on the right-hand side before I touch the left-hand side there. The right-hand side, I can see attachments, file name and uploaded. So if a client sent me a potentially drafted airway bill in this case, or a drafted master bill of lading, I can actually drag and drop that file into the system here. So I'm going to pull up a random file called estimate and quotes, drag and drop, and I can see, oh, the drag and drop function absolutely works. PDF is the document type that I did choose, or if you just click on it as well, you can see what is the other document you'd like to select from a folder. I personally prefer the drag and drop. If you're dragging and dropping from an email, please drag and drop the email to your desktop first. So it's got a physical path location on your computer, and then from the desktop, you can drag the email into the attachments. Once you've chosen the attachments, you can also add a remark that this is a draft, for instance, and then click the upload button. And you can see what documents you've attached ready and available for when you're actually doing your clearance file. If you want to, you can actually press on the picture, the PDF documents over here, and it will download it straight into your computer. If you have a pop-up block, just look out for the pop-up blocks, and you can re-download it from the system as well. All right, when I hit the download option, Control J on my keyboard for any browser, Control J, thank you. And there I can see my estimate quote did download, but for some funny reason, my settings didn't tell me it downloaded. So that might be one of my settings based in my Google Chrome browser, which I can always affect my own settings or get your developers your IT personnel to help you with that if needs be. I'm just going to press the download button again just to review. That's quite interesting. It didn't pull the download. That's annoying. Okay, so I can see this document's attached. If you want to download it, you should be able to click on the button to re-download it. Any issues that I pick up like this, I am recording, so I will take that up with our development department. Furthermore, to the far right hand side, if I am linking a file, there's no plus button over here. So how does that portion work? This will more relate into the clearance side of things. So I'm just going to show you a quick example of how linked files now work, and then come back to this master file. So I see that's my master file number. I'm going to go to Home. Going to my imports or exports, we raised a master file for import. I'm not going to go voucher correction because the master file doesn't exist. So that doesn't exist as a clearance file. So I can't do a voucher correction on a clearance file that doesn't exist. I have to go into import bill of entry. And then you can see there's a lot of options on the far left hand side. We will elaborate that on the imports and exports session, but the main purpose here is from master file. So you can specify the client file reference number, the house number, press the search button, and then in the same order, I can see my master file is right here. I can select it, and all the information that I've had on my master file will have pulled through. So I'm just slowly going down this. I'm not going through all the information, and only populate the registration screen. This registration screen is not populated 100%. If it was and I press save, I would get an automatic file number. But now when I press save, nothing happens. There's no error message on the screen. Beg to differ. Scroll down ever so slightly, and then you can see, well, first the agent file number is mandatory. But as per my knowledge, I do note that port of discharge is mandatory, country of destination is mandatory, port of exit is mandatory. We can switch mandatory fields off. It's not advisable. But at this point, you can see, even though I pulled through my master file, I can't actually save it without filling out the mandatory fields as well. I believe there should have been auto numbering here. I'm just going to review. Oh, I see the mandatory fields for the test environment have been switched off, which is a good thing on our test environment, but not a good thing for a live system. However, I can see here that, cool, my master file is linked to this house, this clearance file over here. I can click on the shortcut button here, and it will actually take me back to the master file, where it can immediately show you what clearance file is linked, and then you can click on the green open button, and it will take you back to the clearance file that that master file is linked to. The clearance file obviously ready, and you finalize that for the clearance in regards to raising that file with customs. Right, so leaving the clearance file aside, if I had captured containers for this air freight or ULD for this air freight type shipment, or be it a sea freight shipment, the containers would have pulled through as well. So I'm going to press the containers button over there. I can use the CSV import functionality. Please reach out to EasyClear to show you how. It needs to be in a very specific format. If it's not in that format, it will not import. Or manually, I can press the plus button, add my type of container, be it break bulk or 20-foot to 40-foot containers, high top or low carriage. I'm going to make this one just a basic break bulk for air freight, container number ULD. And for air freight, I'm not going to insert the rest of the information there, don't need it. For sea freight, you might have a valid container number, seal number. Is that seal mechanical electronic? What is the gross weight? The depot code is going to be landing on. In this case, for air freight, I'm going to say Emirates. We'll put it to Swissport's depot. What is the cargo status? In this case, break bulk or FCL, LCL for sea freight. Is there a depot code 1, so the deconsolidation terminal, and then the unpacked depot versus the deconsolidation terminal, and what is the cargo status 2 of that? Is there a UN number? UN number 1001, so obviously that'll be on the side of the package. what is the digital class, the digi class. For packing groups, I find, sorry, digi class, I'm going to say 01 there. You should have your IATA's digi class from there, or for CFRATE type entries as well. Packing groups, I do find that a lot of users who use EasyClear, packing group does not go to the EDI message. It might get printed out on the air label. Or for, say, for instance, a sea freight type entry, you can always say the packing group for air freight would be loose, but for a sea freight type entry, a containerized cargo, I might have 1, 2, 3, 4 space, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can see that there's two consolidation type packages over here. So I've seen a lot of people use the packing group as pipes. Now that's the backslash on your keyboard with a shift backslash gives you the pipe sign. So you can quite easily reference the packing group as a visual aspect if you would like to. The reefer, is it refrigerated and at what temperature? Minus 20 degrees. For books, healthy books. Is it hazardous for nuclear waste or radioactive items? And then if it is a reefer temperature, I'm going to untick hazardous. Does it have a gauge? So a temperature gauge on it as well. Additional details are not absolutely mandatory, but you can specify what the additional details are, what the package details are. So this will be one package at 10 by 11 by 13, which will give you your dimension and height of the physical package in the container, the ULD, or the break bulk loose goods. Now, loose goods, at least for volumetric weights, most people don't insert volumetric weight for air freight type shipments, but it is mandatory for sea freight, please. What is the weight of the goods? So you have the weight of the container on top, hence why I'm only filling that in now for sea freight type entry. But for the break bulk goods, let's leave it at 300 kilograms. And EasyClear will always work in kgs. All right. What is the weight of the goods inside the container for sea freight type entry? But for the air freight type entry, I'm going to leave it at the same. The volume, 10 by 11 by 13. I don't have a calculator on me, so I'm just going to say 121. Maths might be a little bit off there, but don't hold me to it. So I would actually utilize a calculator to verify that as well. All right, and then for the package, what type of package is it? You can only specify from the drop-down list. Is there a short description of the goods and what is the marks? For those of you who would like to use the Q67, you can use a reference, the temp number, consolidation code, and the steri, as well as VGM methods, confirm dates. If you want to utilize this in haul type, because maybe using a freestore type warehouse, you can actually utilize this for more specific information. So it came in via air freight, and then basically a haul type, I'm hauling it to my warehouse via road freight. So I can put in the driver name or any free text information that I choose. And you can use this as you like it because you would like EasyClear to present you with a specific type of report at the end of the day. Help us understand what type of report you're looking for, and maybe we can help you identify what information you need to insert to accommodate that report, and we can always communicate directly with you to associate that information. All right, I'm going to press the save button, and I can see, oh, this is validating a sea freight type container. I'm doing an air freight shipment, so I'm just going to ignore the container number, press the save button again, and I can see I can bypass it as well. All right, and once this is saved, then I can close this pop-up. Oh, once the pop-up's closed, I can always go ahead and insert the marks and numbers. So I can say test marks numbers. And then I'm going to delete and recreate the link file just to show you how the container and marks and numbers do pull through to the clearance side as well. Cool. Please remember to press save after you insert marks and numbers in order to save that information as well. The schedule button. For the schedule button, if you know that there's a scheduled transporter always continuously going backwards and forwards, you can utilize what the transport details are. And then you can also say, what is the rate per mass? So say, for instance, it's 35 Rand per ton or 35 Rand per kilogram. I'm going to specify per ton here. So it'll be weight mass of 1,000 times by 35. So my weight mass will be per the 1,000, which is in kilograms. So if I wanted to say, well, I want to work in 35 Rand per ton, EasyClear will determine that information, excuse me, in kilograms. So you need to specify it's 35 Rand per ton. I've got 1,000 kilograms, so 350 Rand per kilogram. And then what is the quantity as well? And you can utilize this information for your debtors invoicing right at the end that can accommodate this information and calculations as well. So you can calculate per tonnage for road freight, or even in some cases, tonnage kilogram per air freight type shipment, if you really want to take that calculation further. But as per the debtors within EasyClear, we also have, and I'll press the blue button again, we also have the debtor profile where you can load your rates per calculation. And we can definitely help you with this as well. Right, I'm just going to press the save button there. And then I'm going to say, because this is a console load shipment, I want more than one house line. So I'm going to go home. Once my client has confirmed that the shipment is ready, everything is hunky-dory for it to go to customs, do the finalization, they've given you the clearing instruction, we can go ahead and raise our next import file. So I'll specify from master number. I know my master number was 11, and I like in EasyClear the fact that you can use a percentage sign. So because my master file number is this full number here, I can press the magnifying glass to search for that number. But if I wanted to, I can actually remove all that information, replace that with a percentage symbol, press the search, and I should have gotten the same result. I see the percentage symbol is not working on this functionality here. However, it does work everywhere else. That's annoying. So I'm going to specify my file number is 002. Just press the save button quickly. Duplicate master. Yes, it would be a duplicate master. Because I'm not finalized with the shipment, I'm just going to make it unique. But if you know that the master number is complete and it cannot be changed, then I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to need to ignore that. When I ignore it, you are going to have to specify your administrative details to ignore it. So if you can, get your administrator to come over to your desk, insert the username and password to bypass that. Or alternatively, if we switch off the duplication check altogether, then you can ignore it just as a message without having to insert administrative rights. Or actually, you won't even get a duplicate master number if we switch it off together. So if you have a duplication with customs, there might be a penalty. So please be careful of Section 91 declaration issues. So the personal preference is the duplication check is on. I'm going to ignore the house number and then press the save. Cool. I can see that this master file number is now linked. My containers, now that I've added them, have automatically pulled through, inclusive of the marks and numbers. So endorsements, I see my house numbers pulled through and marks and numbers have pulled through as well. The main reason for this to put on the registration screen is because every time you recalculate a worksheet on a clearance file, the SAD 500 technically gets deleted. And then you're going to have to retype in your marks and numbers. So that's why I like to put on the registration screen. So every time I recalculate a worksheet, it pulls through to my SAD 500, which will be an explanation for a later stage. All right, that concludes our session for master filing. Thank you very much for joining, and I'm going to stop the recording.